I am really excited to welcome to Woke AF Daily both April Grayson, who is the statewide coordinator for the Young Women's Freedom Center, and Adnan Khan, who is the executive director of Restore Justice. I'm excited to have the both of you on joining today because I feel like the conversation that is being missed around the coronavirus is the discussion of another vulnerable population, which is those folks that are incarcerated. And, much in the same way that there have been outbreaks per se at nursing homes, the same thing is happening in our prison system. And it's a population of people, unlike nursing homes, that clearly we don't really care a lot about. And I want to talk to the both of you about one, you both have been formerly incarcerated during times of other outbreaks, whether it be H1N1, SARS, or Legionnaire's disease or other things. Can you speak to us about the experience of what it is like to be in lockdown in the midst of a pandemic, and how you're treated, and what precautions, if any, are taken to care for prisoners? So to those folks that are incarcerated, Adnan, I'll start with you. Just tell us a bit about your experience and your understanding of what's happening right now.
Yeah, my experience with quarantines and viruses that attack the prison system have been actually very terrible. Our prison system is not set up to defend or defeat any type of virus that comes in there. Prisons are traditionally, historically built with punishment in mind, like the architecture of it. And so they're not built with hospitals or hospitality in mind. So when the viruses hit, in my experience, I remember it was like an onslaught. There's no escaping it. And you couple that with mass incarceration, meaning volume of people that are inside these facilities. It's very, very difficult to escape it. Right now in COVID-19, one of the solutions or suggestions that were given by Dr. Fauci, for example, is stay 6 feet apart. That's one example. Well,
Right.
I lived in a building with 900 people. On the tier or the floor that I lived on was with 100 people, and that tier was only 3 feet wide. And we're
Wow.
sharing not just that tier with 100 incarcerated people, but with medical staff that come by to give pills, with correctional officers who escort them, correctional officers who have to pass out food and mail. So we're sharing that tier with more than just incarcerated people.
Okay. April, what was your experience like as well? Because again, it sounds, what we are learning really is that social distancing is a privilege, right? If you are in an environment where there is a lot of space and you are able to do that, and you're able to be the 6 feet apart, we're learning now that that is a privilege, that it is not something that it can be done in densely populated places. It cannot be done in prisons. What was your experience like?
My experience is similar to Adnan's. We are 256 to a unit. We're 8 to a cell, 64 to a hallway. And so to get 6 feet in a cell, like one person would have to be at one end of the cell and the other person would have to be at the door trying to leave it out the cell. And so we would never have been able to obtain that because your bunkie lives directly above you. But I just really recall looking out of a window one day and watching the medical staff come in with a face mask on. And so I personally am not a fan of the news because I believe it's a tool to cause fear within the people. So I didn't really watch the news. I wasn't really aware of what was going on, but I just remember watching this staff with this mask on. And my thought was, why does she need a mask? I'm the one who's only susceptible or vulnerable if she brings it to me. Right. But they had this you could feel like this energy of like we were the contaminated ones. So like even right now in the institution, like there's this energy of they're the ones that are contaminated and they're the ones that the officers need to be fearful of, but that's not the case. This is a very sterile population. We are a very sterile population. And so just knowing that if a person doesn't have humanity, meaning the officer doesn't have humanity, if the medical staff doesn't have humanity, they're treating me as if I'm the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what
Danielle, can I jump in for a second? And
yeah, please.
yeah, I just want to comment on quote unquote social distancing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify to our viewers, or sorry, our listeners, that social distancing is possible in prison. As a matter of fact, I was sentenced to social distance. Physical distancing is completely impossible.
Right. And that is a point of clarification. You know, one of the things that has been going around on the news as well is the fact that those folks that are currently incarcerated are being forced, right, used as manual labor to make hand sanitizer that they're not able to use because it has alcohol in it, and having alcohol is against the rules. How does that even how does that work? And being paid, I think I heard in one report that it was like 16 cents a day to be making gallons and gallons of hand sanitizer. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Can I talk about this one? And it's not, so I want to talk about the face mask also.
Oh,
so
yes,
in the women's prison in CIW, the PIA workers were making, and PIA is like the state worker who manufactures massive goods for different prisons and different entities, and they get paid menial amounts of money. And so they were making face masks that they couldn't even utilize. So let's not even talk about the thing with the alcohol, because of the alcohol content. That's the reason why. Let's talk about the thing that they could have that they weren't getting immediately, because they had to give it out to other people and make sure others had it before they themselves could get this face mask. And so now throughout these weeks, the face masks are now being distributed to the population, but it took 2 and 3 weeks for the people who are actually making them to get them. So we could talk about hand sanitizer, which it has alcohol, but let's talk about the face mask, which doesn't.
Right.
What was your reasoning for not giving them, the maker of the face mask, who was making it at slave wages and cannot?
Right.
April, I'm sorry, Danielle.
No, go ahead.
April and I had this discussion so many times, and I would love for, if you don't mind, April, talk about the immediately post 13th Amendment and how people were incarcerated to be laborers, to be workers.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite topics, of course, is Amendment 13, and when they abolished slavery. So you abolish slavery with the clause of, unless a person commits a crime, or if a person commits a crime. But we're still in the dawn of criminalization of Black people, because you still wanted to have slave labor. Like, the war wasn't fought over industries, it was really fought over, well, it was over industries, but over people. So that could go far, but I'm not gonna go too far. But once they abolished slavery, they thus started, you couldn't drink out of a water fountain, you're going to jail. If you didn't drop your head when they called you boy, you were going to jail. If they said that you whistled at a white woman, which we know you weren't, you were going to jail. Or
you were going to be murdered.
They had any reason to arrest. That's the start of mass incarceration. So they've been trying to get free labor since the 1800s, the 1700s, the 1600s, since the beginning of colonization. And, so
they will get straight. They will get sent straight back to the plantations, and many would go right back to the plantations that, as an incarcerated person, that they were quote unquote freed from. So you fast forward 100 some years later, that using incarcerated people as workers and paying them pennies or nothing in many facilities, it just goes back to their industry, the complex of an industry and businesses. And if we're talking about public safety, I believe rehabilitation achieves public safety. So when you release, there's 600,000 people come out every year out of our prisons nationally, 600,000. And I worked, I'll give you an example. I didn't work for hand sanitizer or anything. I was released last year. But an example of one of my jobs was I worked in the kitchen. I cleaned almost 4,000 trays every single day for 8 hours. And I was paid 8 cents an hour.
Wow.
And I remember I was in a facility where I was given where first time in my incarceration, 12 years later, I was given an opportunity to join self-help groups and programs, and which I immediately got into. But one day I come back to my cell, and April, you know, I had a work assignment card on my top bunk, on my bunk. And I knew immediately what it was. I looked at it, I'm like, oh, they just assigned me to a job, which meant my job, which is 8 cents an hour, is my priority, not my rehabilitation. So I had to leave my classes that I was taking for my childhood development, my childhood trauma, whatever it was that I was taking. I had to leave those because priority in prison is work.